The morning of my graduation felt like something out of a postcard. Deceptively perfect, painfully bright. Seattle had that rare kind of sunshine that makes everything look cleaner and happier than it really is. The sky was a crisp blue bowl over the University of Washington campus, and the quad glowed with purple gowns and silver honor cords flickering like metallic ribbons in the light. I watched families clustered beneath cherry blossoms, snapping photos, crying, laughing, hugging with that fierce pride that wraps around you like a warm blanket. Everywhere I turned, someone was being pulled into an embrace, kissed on the forehead, lifted off their feet by parents who couldn't stop smiling. There were flowers, balloons, handmade posters, even a couple of toddlers clapping for graduates they didn't know. Joy buzzed through the air like electricity. And then there was me, standing alone at the edge of everyone else's happiness, clutching my cap like it was the only thing grounding me to the earth. I had finished a brutal 2-year master's program in cybersecurity, nights spent sleeping under my desk in the lab, weeks lost in research, projects that other students thought were too complicated or too ambitious, internships where I practically lived off vending machine coffee and stubborn determination. It had been worth it, all of it. I should have felt proud. I should have felt seen. But as I scanned the crowd, my chest tightened with an ache I didn't want to admit out loud. They weren't here. Of course they weren't. I kept telling myself I didn't need them to be. I was 27, practically old by student standards, independent enough to survive anything. I shouldn't have felt like a kid waiting for her parents to show up at a dance recital. And yet, part of me hoped. Part of me wanted, for once, to feel like the moment mattered to them. 15 minutes passed, then 20. The ceremony was about to begin when I finally saw them appear on the far end of the lawn, moving through the sea of excited families like they were walking into a DMV line, not their daughter's graduation. My father, Frank Lane, walked in front, his shoulders stiff, his mouth pulled in that familiar line of disappointment he seemed born with. He looked around the crowd as if the whole event annoyed him. My mother, Linda, followed a few steps behind him, small, tired, clutching her purse like a shield, offering me a smile so soft it almost looked like guilt. And then, of course, Madison appeared last. Madison always looked perfect. Blonde curls, sunglasses perched in her hair, a dress that probably cost more than my entire degree. She walked with that effortless confidence of someone who had been endlessly adored her whole life. When they reached me, I forced a smile. "You're late," I said gently. Dad didn't apologize. He just exhaled sharply, like my graduation being today was an inconvenience I'd sprung on him last minute. "We're here now," he said. "Stand up straight. You look slouched." "No congratulations. No, we're proud of you. Nothing." Mom stepped forward and hugged me, barely. Just a light brush of arms around my shoulders. "You look beautiful," she whispered. But even that sounded like something she wasn't allowed to say too loudly. Maddie looked me up and down. "Your cap is crooked," she said, wrinkling her nose, "and your hair is frizzy in the back. Did you seriously not have time to fix that?" I bit the inside of my cheek. "It's a graduation, not a modeling gig." She laughed lightly, like I'd told a joke, even though I hadn't intended one. Photos were rushed, forced. Dad kept saying things like, "Move to the left, fix your gown, don't squint," but nothing that resembled pride. At one point, I dropped my cap, and Maddie burst out laughing, loud enough that people around us turned to look. When the ceremony finally began, we took our seats. My friends sat with their families, leaning into them, whispering, taking photos. I watched a girl 2 rows ahead burst into tears when her dad handed her a bouquet so big it almost covered her. Another student lifted his mother off her feet in a spinning hug that caused the entire row to applaud. Meanwhile, my father scrolled on his phone. The ceremony felt endless and yet over too soon. When I crossed the stage and heard my name, I couldn't help but glance toward where my family sat. My mom clapped politely. Maddie checked her reflection in her phone. Dad didn't even look up. By the time the event ended, I felt hollow, completely hollow. Still, I went through the motions, collecting my things, taking photos with my classmates, exchanging excited hugs, all while feeling like the only person in a stadium full of love who didn't have a place to land. That's when I heard it. Avery, over here. Dad's voice, sharp, final. The tone that always meant something had already been decided for me, and I didn't get a say. I walked toward them, bracing myself for a lecture or maybe a stiff pat on the shoulder. Instead, he handed me a small box, wrapped in plain paper. No card, no bow, no warmth. "What is this?" I asked. "Open it," he said. Something tightened in my stomach. I peeled the paper away slowly, lifted the lid, and time simply stopped. Inside the box lay a one-way bus ticket. Destination: Denver, Colorado. Departure: tonight. 8:45 p.m. For a long moment I couldn't breathe. The world blurred around the edges. My heartbeat roared in my ears. "What?" my voice cracked. "What? What is this supposed to mean?" Dad crossed his arms. "It means you're done with school, which means you're done living off me. You're 27 years old. It's time you learned to stand on your own 2 feet." My skin prickled. With heat, embarrassment, shock, pain. People passing us slowed down, glancing over like they recognized humiliation when they saw it. Madison let out a small gasp, then laughed. "Wow, a one-way ticket? That's bold, Dad." Bold. She said it like this was some kind of prank. I swallowed hard enough to keep the tears from spilling. Mom stepped forward, touching my arm with the faintest brush of fingers. "Sweetheart, maybe this will be good for you," she whispered. You'll grow." Grow. Like I hadn't grown through every night spent coding until my fingers cramped. Grow. Like I wasn't already doing more than they could ever imagine. Grow. As if I hadn't built a life in shadows, because they never believed I could. I hugged her. Hard. Harder than she expected. She inhaled sharply, her hands gripping me like she didn't want to let go, but did anyway the second Dad cleared his throat. That was it. No one stopped me. No one asked me what I wanted. No one cared. I straightened, wiped my cheeks quickly, and nodded. "Okay," I said softly. A surrender. The last one I would ever give them. I turned away, walking through clusters of happy families, each one a reminder of everything I never had. My gown swayed with each step. My fingers dug into the box holding the ticket meant to exile me. They thought they were kicking me out. They didn't realize I was already gone. I made it halfway across campus before the first tear fell, then another, then the dam finally cracked. I found a bench under a blooming tree and let myself cry silently, hidden by the branches. It wasn't just the ticket, it wasn't just the humiliation, it was the final confirmation that I had always known but never wanted to admit. My family did not want me. Not the real me, only the version they had created in their minds. The version that obeyed, shrank, apologized, and stayed small. But I wasn't small. I hadn't been small in years. I wiped my face, took a deep breath, and stood up. If they wanted me gone, fine. But they would never expect where I was actually going, not into uncertainty, not into desperation, not into some tragic beginning. I was stepping into a world I built myself, one they never knew existed, and one they would soon regret ignoring. Because that bus ticket they meant as a dismissal? It wasn't an ending. It was the cleanest beginning I could have asked for. The bus station in downtown Seattle always smelled like rain-soaked concrete and too many people moving in too many directions. It wasn't a place where dreams started. It was a place where people escaped to wherever they hoped life would be kinder. I stood there with my gown folded over one arm, my backpack tight against my chest, the box with the one-way ticket shoved deep inside like I could hide the humiliation from myself if I just pushed it far. Enough down. 8:45 p.m., one way to Denver. Denver. The city my father thought I'd be forced to survive in. The city where he imagined I'd fail, struggle, maybe crawl back home ashamed and desperate enough to accept whatever crumbs of approval he might throw at me. He had no idea. The bus lights flickered on, casting a yellow glow that made everything look softer than it felt. People lined up, students, families, a couple arguing about money, a teenager wiping his eyes with the sleeve of his hoodie. Everyone had their own story about why they were leaving. Mine was just quieter, sharper, more intentional. When the doors hissed open, I took a long breath and stepped inside. The air smelled like old vinyl seats and the faint cherry scent of someone's cheap air freshener clipped to a vent. I picked a window seat midway down, not too close to the front where drivers could overhear conversations, and not too close to the back where groups usually drank, talked loudly, or argued through the night. I pressed my forehead to the cool glass. It felt grounding, like touching the real world after a day that seemed unreal from beginning to end. As the engine rumbled to life, my phone buzzed. Elias. Where are you? Did you leave campus yet? I smiled softly, tired, but relieved to see his name. Elias always had this way of sounding like someone mid-panic, but only because he cared too much and never knew how to hide it. We met during a research program in our last undergraduate year, two overworked, sleep-deprived misfits who bonded over broken code and vending machine dinners. He was the kind of friend who would stay up with you until sunrise fixing your machine learning model. Not because he needed it, but because you sounded stressed when you texted. We built CipherGuard together from the ground up. We had grown it in whispers, behind careful walls of silence. We had created something worth millions. And yet my family didn't even know he existed. I typed back, Avery, on my way to Denver. Long story, I'll explain tonight. The dots appeared immediately. Elias, what do you mean on your way to Denver? Elias, are you taking a flight, a late one? Elias, Avery? I hesitated before replying. Telling him the truth would make it more real. It would chip the last small piece of armor I still had. And after today, I didn't know how much more of myself I could afford to lose. Avery, nope. Bus, don't freak out. I'm fine. Promise. There was a long pause, long enough that I imagined him pacing across our office floor, running a hand through his hair the way he did whenever code crashed or a server went down. Elias, why are you on a bus? You hate buses. Elias, Avery, what happened? Elias, did something go wrong? The bus pulled out of the station before I could respond. Seattle flickered by in streaks of streetlights and reflections on wet pavement. I watched buildings blur, the dim apartments, the neon signs, the bridges glowing like veins across the city. My city, but never my home. For a while, no one spoke. The bus settled into that nighttime rhythm, quiet shuffling, low whispers, the occasional cough. The driver hummed along to an old country station playing through his speaker. The world outside darkened until only the silhouettes of trees and road signs remained. The ache in my chest softened, just a little. Leaving Seattle didn't hurt. It felt like letting go of a weight I'd carried for years. My phone buzzed again, but this time with a different name. Mom. My breath caught. A single text appeared. Mom, I hope you make it safely. Text me when you arrive. Please. Nothing else. No explanation. No apology. Just a soft, trembling thread of hope that didn't make sense anymore. I locked my phone and leaned back. For the first time since the ceremony, the exhaustion finally caught up with me. I wasn't sad. Not exactly. Sadness implies something was lost. But you can't lose what you never had. I closed my eyes as the bus hummed down I-5, weaving past Olympia's quiet streets and into the dark stretch of highway flanked by endless pine trees. The rhythmic sway of the vehicle lulled the other passengers to sleep, one by one. Even the argument couple went silent. That was when the first memory surfaced. I was 9 years old, standing in our living room with a certificate from a school coding competition. I'd built a tiny game, a simple maze solved by logic gates. It wasn't groundbreaking, but for a child who learned most of her skills by sneaking time on the family computer at night, it felt like winning an Olympic medal. I handed the certificate to Dad, glowing with pride, expecting something. Maybe a pat on the head, a smile, a nod. He didn't look at it for more than half a second. "You're wasting too much time on the computer," he said. "You should be outside like a normal kid. No more of this nonsense." He tore the certificate in half. I remembered the sound, the ripping paper, the way my throat burned, the way my mother stood silently washing dishes, pretending she didn't hear anything. Then Madison walked in with her dance trophy, and Dad lifted her off her feet, spun her around, kissed her cheek. "You're my star," he told her. "You're the child who's going to make us proud." I went upstairs and cried into my pillow so hard I got a headache. That was the night I learned to stop showing him anything. The bus jolted slightly over a stretch of uneven road, pulling me back to the present. My eyes opened to the soft glow of overhead lights. Most passengers slept, heads against windows, legs curled awkwardly. I checked my phone again. Another message from Elias. "Elias, if you don't answer, I'm driving to Seattle myself. Don't test me." I exhaled a tired laugh, the first real laugh I'd managed all day. I typed slowly. "Avery, they kicked me out. Dad gave me a bus ticket." "Avery, that's the short version. I'll explain the rest when I get in." His response came instantly. "Elias." "What?" "Elias, I swear to God I'm going to break into your father's house and—" "Elias. Okay. No, I won't. But I want to." "Elias. Are you okay? Be honest." I stared at the screen. Was I okay? I should have been devastated. Anyone else might have been. But as the wheels carried me farther from Seattle, the pain I expected didn't come. Instead, something else did. Relief. I typed, "Avery, I'm okay. Really, I think this is what I needed." A minute passed. Then, "Elias, you deserved better." "Elias, you always have." "Elias, call me when you're close. I'll pick you up." Another message. "Elias. And Avery, you're not alone. Not anymore." My throat tightened, not with hurt, but with something warmer, something steadier. I locked my phone again and leaned my head against the window, watching the dark blur of the world outside. Hours passed, mile after mile. The road turned into a long silver ribbon beneath us, disappearing beneath tires that seemed determined to outrun every memory I'd tried not to think about for years. Somewhere past Portland, a woman boarded with 2 children who immediately fell asleep against her sides. A boy behind me played soft music through his earbuds. A man 2 rows up scribbled in a sketchbook. Life, strangers, stories intersecting by accident. And me, the girl kicked out with a bus ticket, riding straight toward the life nobody in my family believed I could build. By the time the bus crossed into Idaho, the sun was rising, thin streaks of pale gold spreading across the sky like the first quiet breath of a new beginning. The knot in my chest loosened completely. This wasn't exile. This wasn't rejection. This was a return to the world that had always been mine. CipherGuard, Elias, the company, the life I built brick by brick, line of code by line of code. They wanted me gone. They thought they were stripping me of safety. They thought they were forcing me into survival mode. But I was going home. Back to the only place where I had ever been seen. Back to the life they never knew existed, and for the first time in years, I whispered something into the quiet morning light. "Thank you for kicking me out." Because now I was free, more free than I had ever been. The elevator doors slid open with a dull chime, and the hallway lights flickered as if the building itself hesitated to reveal what waited for me. Room 823. The number was burned into my mind now. My wife. Another man. My reservation. My life pulled out from under me like a rug soaked in betrayal. I stopped at the door, my pulse pounding so hard it blurred my vision. The carpet smelled like old perfume and cleaning. Chemicals. My hand hovered above the door handle, trembling, not from fear, but from a storm of emotions I couldn't yet name. I didn't knock. I swiped the spare keycard the manager had given me. A soft beep, a soft click, and then darkness. The room was pitch black except for the faint glow of the bedside lamp, left on at its lowest setting. The air was thick, humid, as if someone had been inside only moments before. My throat tightened. "Hello?" My voice came out as a whisper, afraid of the answer. I stepped inside. The smell hit me first, cologne that wasn't mine. Sharp, musky, expensive. A scent I'd never smelled on my wife in all the years we'd been together. And beneath it, something floral. Her perfume. Rose and vanilla. The combination was suffocating. 2 wine glasses sat on the table, one with lipstick, one half full. A chill crawled up my spine. I took another step and noticed something stranger. The room wasn't like the standard layout I knew from staying at this hotel before. A normal room should have a small sofa near the window, a desk near the TV, a single closet. But this room had an extra door. A door I had never seen in any layout. It stood at the far end near the curtains, narrow, tall, painted the same beige as the wall, almost hidden. A door that shouldn't exist. My heartbeat stuttered. I reached for the light switch, flicked it on. The main lights buzzed to life, revealing the bed, messy, sheets thrown apart, pillows on the floor. My chest tightened. The image alone nearly crushed the breath out of me. Then, a sound. A soft shuffle. From behind that extra door. A breath caught in my throat. Someone was in there. I walked forward slowly, careful, like stepping toward a wild animal. My fingers brushed the doorframe. The wood was warm. I pressed my ear to the door. Muffled breathing. Not mine, not imagination. Someone was on the other side. I pushed the door open. A cold draft rushed past me, carrying the faint smell of damp concrete. The light flickered inside the space, and for a moment I thought it was a maintenance closet. But it wasn't. The door opened into a narrow, unfinished service corridor, one that connected several rooms on the floor. Dim emergency lights glowed red every few meters. The walls were rough, dusty, with exposed wires and metal pipes running overhead. Someone could easily walk between rooms without being seen. Someone could slip inside or escape without ever using the hallway. My stomach twisted. This wasn't a hotel room. This was a trap. And then I heard it. Footsteps, slow, echoing, coming from the far end of the invisible corridor. My breath froze. A shadow appeared at the edge of the dim light. Tall, broad shoulders, moving steadily. Not rushing, not panicked. As if he knew I'd be here. As if he'd walked this hall many times. I stepped backward, my hand instinctively searching for something to use as a weapon. I grabbed the lamp, ripped it from the table, the plug snapping loose with a spark. The footsteps grew louder. "Who's there?" I yelled, though my voice cracked. The shadow paused. Then, a low, calm male voice answered from the darkness. "You're early, Mr. Thurman." My blood ran cold. How did he know my name? I raised the lamp like a club, but he chuckled softly, confident, unhurried. "You shouldn't be here yet," he said. She wasn't ready to explain. My grip tightened. "Where is my wife?" He stepped closer, his face still hidden, but the silhouette clear, tall, muscular, deliberate. "Not here," he said. "Not tonight." Then he turned and ran, not toward me, but deeper into the secret corridor. I lunged forward, but he vanished into the shadows, swallowed whole by the maze of service tunnels. I stood there shaking, heart pounding against my ribs, the lamp heavy in my hand. My wife had checked in under my name. She wasn't alone, and the man she was with knew exactly who I was. But the worst part wasn't that. The worst part was the realization forming like ice in my veins. This wasn't an affair. This wasn't an accident. This was a setup. Someone had arranged every detail. Someone wanted me to find this room. And someone was... I stumbled back into the hotel room, my pulse still hammering in my ears. The lamp shook in my hand, the metal warm from my grip. The service corridor door swung half shut behind me, as if trying to hide the truth I had just seen. I locked it. Then I locked the main door. Then I checked it again. My mind raced, every thought slamming into me like waves in a storm. My wife wasn't here. The man knew my name. And the room had a secret passage built for people who didn't want to be seen. This wasn't about cheating anymore. This was something darker. I dropped the lamp onto the bed and forced myself to breathe through the suffocating silence. The sheets were still messy. The 2 wine glasses still sat on the table. Evidence, clues, lies. I scanned the room like a detective searching for cracks in a perfect crime. And then I saw it. A purse. Her purse. She never went anywhere without it. I rushed to it like a drowning man grabbing a life preserver. My hands trembled as I unzipped it. Inside were the usual things: lipstick, gum, receipts. But something was off. Everything was too neat, too organized. My wife was never neat. It was as if the bag had been staged. Then I found it. A hotel room keycard, but not for room 823. Room 715. My breath snagged. She had 2 rooms. Why? I didn't have time to think about it. I shoved the card in my pocket. As I stood up, my phone vibrated in my hand so hard I nearly dropped it. Unknown number. My heart leapt into my throat. I answered. A woman whispered into the phone, her voice shaky, broken, terrified. "David, don't trust her." My blood froze. "Who is this?" I demanded. The woman sniffled. "They're using her. They're using you. You need to leave the hotel, right now." "Where is my wife?" I snapped. Silence. Then, a small sob. "She made her choice, David. I didn't." "What does that mean? Who are you?" The line crackled with static, then a faint squeak like someone opening a door. "Look under the bathroom sink," she whispered, "before they get to you." The call dropped. I stared at the blank screen, my breath coming sharp and uneven. Look under the bathroom sink. My legs moved on instinct. I pushed the bathroom door open. The fluorescent lights buzzed, reflecting off the spotless tiles. I kneeled and gripped the cabinet handle. I hesitated. If there was something under there, it meant everything happening tonight was part of a plan much bigger than a cheating wife and a shadow in a hidden hallway. I pulled the cabinet open and saw a small black pouch. My heart beat in my throat as I pulled it out. It was heavier than it looked. A zipper ran down the center, and when I opened it, something metallic glinted under the light. A phone, a stack of cash, a flash drive, a folded piece of paper with my name written on it in her handwriting. Shaking, I opened the note. "If you found this, it means I failed." My vision blurred. Run. No explanation, no apology, just that single word. I sank onto the cold tiles, the letter shaking in my hands. Why was she running? From who? And why did it look like she'd been planning this escape for months, right under my nose? Something scraped behind me. The doorknob, slowly turning. My stomach plummeted. I scrambled to my feet. The bathroom door creaked open just an inch, shadows stretching across the floor like fingers reaching for me. Then a voice slid through the crack, smooth, controlled, chillingly familiar. "Mr. Thurman, we need to talk." The same man from the hidden corridor. He had found me, and this time, he wasn't running. The bathroom door cracked open just enough for me to see the outline of his face. Sharp jawline, calm eyes, the kind of man who looked like he never rushed, never panicked, never lost control. He stepped into the room with the quiet confidence of someone who had been here before, someone who knew the layout, the secrets, the escape routes. I stumbled backward until my spine hit the cold tile wall. He didn't raise his hands. He didn't threaten me. He simply shut the door behind him with a soft click. "Don't scream," he said. "I wasn't planning to," I whispered, even though my pulse hammered in my throat like a trapped animal. He glanced at the open cabinet under the sink where the black pouch lay exposed. "So," he said, "you found her kit." My jaw clenched. "Where is my wife?" He smiled, a slow, pitying smile that made my stomach twist. "She's not your concern right now," I snapped. "She's my wife." The man tilted his head. "Is she? Do you know her real name?" Something inside me cracked. "What did you do to her?" He chuckled softly. "We didn't do anything to her. She did this to herself." I felt the room spin. My breathing came fast, shallow, desperation clawing at my ribs. He stepped closer, looking over the phone, cash, and flash drive like he already knew every item inside. "She was supposed to be gone before you arrived," he said. But she hesitated. She always hesitates. I didn't know whether to punch him or run. "What do you want?" I asked through clenched teeth. He looked straight into my eyes, and for the first time since he entered, something cold, something almost sympathetic passed across his expression. "You're the one person who wasn't supposed to get dragged into this." "Dragged into what?" He sighed, the kind of sigh you give a man who doesn't know his life is already burning. "Your wife," he said, "wasn't meeting me, and she wasn't meeting a lover." I swallowed hard. "Then who?" "Someone much more dangerous." My entire body tensed. "Who?" Before he could answer, something slammed into the hotel door, a heavy, violent bang that echoed through the room like thunder. The man froze. His calm expression vanished. Another bang, then a muffled shout. "They found us," he whispered. "Us? Why us?" I didn't have time to ask. The man moved fast, faster than I expected. He grabbed the flash drive, the phone, and the cash, and shoved them back into the pouch. Then he pressed it into my chest so hard I stumbled. "Take it," he hissed. "And whatever happens, don't let them get this. It's your wife's last chance." "What's on the drive?" I demanded. He didn't answer. The door banged again, harder. Wood splintered. Someone outside growled, "Open it or we break it!" The man grabbed my arm, yanked me toward the secret door to the service corridor. "If you want to live," he said, "follow me." I yanked my hand free. "Not until you tell me where she is." He grabbed my collar, pulling my face inches from his. "She's not dead," he said. "Yet. But if you stay here, you will be." The final bang cracked the doorframe. A hand punched through the splintered wood. The doorknob twisted violently. I had no choice. The man pulled me into the hidden service corridor, just as the hotel room door burst open behind us. We ran. Cold air cut through the passageway, mixing with the pounding of footsteps echoing behind us. Multiple people, fast, relentless. The man didn't look back. "Move!" The corridor was long, dim, lined with pipes that rattled as we sprinted past them. My chest burned, but adrenaline shoved my legs forward. "Why are they after me?" I gasped. "They're not after you," he said. "They're after what your wife stole." My heart nearly stopped. "What did she steal?" He shot me a look over his shoulder, one filled with a truth I wasn't ready to hear. Everything. We turned a corner sharply, and the corridor dipped downward into deeper darkness. Behind us, the footsteps grew louder, closer, angrier. The man whispered, "Don't stop, David. This hotel won't save us. Nothing will." The world seemed to shrink into this hallway, this breathless chase, this impossible night. And in the suffocating dark, one truth pulsed with every beat of my heart. My wife's secrets were bigger than her betrayal, and her lies were older than our marriage.